Being tends to annihilation, and nothingness tends to being. Arthur Schopenhauer. If nothing existed from the beginning, could something manifest itself out of nothing? From the point of view of logic and common sense, the answer is unequivocally negative. As the ancient Greek philosopher Parmenides said, "Nothing comes from nothing." This idea was shared by many thinkers, including Spinoza, Hegel, and Engels. According to the principle of causality, everything in the world has a cause, and therefore cannot arise without reason. However, some philosophers allowed the possibility of spontaneous origin of being. Thus, Leibniz introduced the concept of creation from nothing. In his opinion, God has the power to produce something out of complete nothingness. Modern quantum physics also discusses the idea of quantum fluctuations of vacuum, generating something from nothing. Thus, there can be no unambiguous answer here. Logic suggests that nothing can arise without a cause. However, one cannot completely exclude the miracle of something appearing out of nothing if we think outside the box. Time and space are the moduses of thought. Immanuel Kant. The question of the nature of time is one of the most fundamental and complex in philosophy and science. There are many approaches to understanding time and its relation to the origin of the universe. Two main concepts of time prevail in philosophy: substantive and relational. According to the first, time exists objectively, as some entity, flow, or continuum. Proponents of the second consider time as a system of relations between events and processes. In science, there is also no single point of view. In classical Newtonian physics, time is absolute and flows uniformly everywhere. In the theory of relativity, it is relative and depends on the speed of motion. According to the general theory of relativity, time is curved under the influence of gravity. As for the origin of time, the most widely accepted to date is the Big Bang. According to it, before the Big Bang, which gave rise to the expansion of the universe, time simply did not exist, and it originated together with all known forms of matter and energy. However, there are other hypotheses. For example, the cyclic model implies an endless succession of expansions and contractions of the universe, that is, time existed before the Big Bang. According to the eternal inflation model, time is infinite in both the past and future. There are different models, each of which in its own way interprets the nature of time and its influence on the beginning of all things. What we call emptiness is only matter in a rarefied state. Leo Tolstoy. It is quite difficult to imagine absolute emptiness because the very concept of emptiness presupposes the presence of space. From a philosophical point of view, the idea of absolute emptiness goes back to ancient atomists like Democritus, who believed that initially there was a void, and then atoms were chaotically born in it. However, even then the question arose, what is this original void, if it is space? In the science of the XX century, with the development of quantum physics, came the understanding that the complete emptiness in principle cannot be, since at the quantum level there are always fluctuations of physical fields. The so-called physical vacuum is not absolutely empty. Nevertheless, it is possible to abstract mentally from everything and to imagine nothingness by mentally removing from consideration all objects, fields, measurements. However, the space itself remains, for there must be some scene in which this nothingness unfolds. That is why absolute emptiness is unattainable in principle. Even if we remove all matter and energy from space, the geometry of space itself remains, which will characterize this emptiness. Perhaps the closest to the idea of absolute emptiness is the concept of physical nothingness in quantum gravity, where space-time has not yet appeared. But this is rather a mathematical abstraction than a description of a real physical state. Nothing outside the observable universe. Perhaps there are regions beyond the event horizon inaccessible to observation due to the expansion of the universe. Thus, the concept of absolute emptiness is essentially logically contradictory and has no unambiguous physical meaning. It is rather a philosophical category reflecting the human mind's desire to comprehend the state of complete nothingness. The explosion was an explosion of harmony, the birth of beautiful forms out of chaos. Teilhard de Chardin. There are several main hypotheses in science about the origin of the Big Bang. 1. Quantum vacuum. According to modern ideas, before the Big Bang there was a quantum vacuum, a special state with chaotic fluctuations of fields. From a random excitation of the vacuum could have arisen the Big Bang. 2. Collapse of a prior universe. There may have been others before our universe that went through an expansion stage and then collapsed into a singularity. From this singularity, our universe emerged as a result of a new Big Bang. 3. The collision of brains. According to string theory, our universe is one of many brains in multidimensional space. The Big Bang could have originated from the collision of two brains. 4. Quantum tunneling. Before the Planck epoch, the universe was in a state of compressed singularity. Due to quantum tunneling, it moved to another state, which caused the Big Bang. But all of these are still just hypotheses. Science does not yet have a convincing explanation supported by observational and experimental data. Nothingness is not the absence but the presence of everything. Mark Twain. According to modern cosmological theories, after the Big Bang, there was a gradual formation of various cosmic objects as follows. A few minutes after the Big Bang, the formation of protons and neutrons from quark-gluon plasma began. A few 100,000 years later, hydrogen and helium condensed into the first stars. Their thermonuclear fusion triggered the creation of heavy elements. The first stars exploded as supernovae, enriching the interstellar medium with these elements, from which planets were later formed. About 9 billion years ago, galaxies began to form from gas and dust clouds. In their disks, stars and planets formed from rotating protoplanetary disks. 4.6 billion years ago, our solar system was formed from a residual gas-dust disk preserved after the birth of the Sun. Thus, as a result of the gradual evolution of matter from simple elementary particles to complex atoms and molecules, the formation of the cosmic objects observed today, stars, planets, galaxies, and galaxy clusters, took place. Their formation is due to the gravitational interaction of matter. Don't you find it similar to the evolution of the human species? The end of the world will come when there will be no one to see it. Vladimir Solovyov. According to modern scientific ideas, there are several possible scenarios for the death of the universe. Great compression. If the density of matter in the universe will be high enough, then under the action of gravity, there will be a stop of expansion and the subsequent global collapse of matter to the point of singularity. Thermal death. Due to the continuous expansion of the universe, matter will be rarefied and the temperature will drop. Eventually, there will be complete thermodynamic death. Proton splitting. According to some theories, protons are unstable and must decay. This will lead to the breakdown of ordinary matter. Collapse into a black hole. Perhaps the entire mass of the universe will collapse into a colossal black hole that will vaporize due to Hawking radiation. Large gap. At very large distances, due to the accelerated expansion of the universe, there will be a rupture of the space-time continuum and a breakdown of the vacuum. However, the most likely scenario at the moment is considered to be the heat death of the universe in 10 hundredths of years after continuous expansion and temperature decrease. Being is primary, consciousness is secondary, but they are inseparable, like two sides of the same coin. Miguel de Unamuno. The relationship between mind and being in the context of the end of the universe. On the one hand, mind can be considered as a generation of the material world. Then, with the cessation of the existence of the universe, thinking consciousness as a form of being must also disappear. However, there is also an idealistic view of the nature of mind as the original essence that gives rise to materiality. From this point of view, mind is primary and can exist outside of concrete physical forms. A compromise approach is also possible. Mind and matter evolve together, but are not reducible to each other. Then the end of the universe does not necessarily mean the annihilation of mind, but only the transformation of its carrier. In any case, a deep, though not fully comprehensible connection between consciousness and reality is evident. And in this dialectic of being and thinking lies a mystery that philosophy has been trying to solve for centuries. But there is no unambiguous answer yet. The death of the universe does not mean the end of all things, for beyond that threshold lurks something beyond the grasp of reason. William James. What awaits us after the end of the universe inevitably leads beyond scientific knowledge into the realm of philosophy and metaphysics. It may be absolute nothingness, the complete cessation of all existence, consciousness, and any experience. The skeptical mind denies the existence of an after in principle. On the other hand, intuitively, we cannot accept such an end. The longing for existence is rooted deep in our souls. We look for loopholes, hope for a miracle, believe in the immortality of the soul, or transition to other dimensions. Perhaps, beyond the boundaries of our world, lurk unseen horizons of existence that cannot be imagined. Or there is a new turn in the cycle of eternal return, another birth of the universe. Philosophy only poses questions, science operates with facts, but the mystery beyond the boundary of existence is still unfathomable. And this has its own beauty, the possibility of endless interpretations and the hope for a miracle. As long as we are alive, there is always a chance to understand one day. It is not eternity that gives meaning to life, but precisely its finitude. Albert Camus. The prospect of a universal end seems absurd from the perspective of individual human existence. What does it matter what all the effort is for if everything is doomed to disappear? But it is precisely the finitude of existence that gives it its poignancy and value. If existence were infinite, it would be meaningless because of its banality. Only perishability allows life to be filled with meaning. Besides, the spiritual experience of mankind is, in a sense, eternal. Even if the world is finite, ideas, values, meanings in a certain sense remain outside time and space. In this indefiniteness lurks the mystery of being that motivates us to moral endeavor and creativity. The last question remains unanswered, and that is the beauty of the infinite mystery of being. Umberto Eco.